All right, so you just did IXL D11. This is D14, what we call transformation of absolute value. Transformations. In D11, I used a word called reflection. That's a transformation. I also used a word called vertical shift, also a transformation. Your goal in this section is to write equations that have been transformed, and they're going to use some wording in here. I believe on this one, I'm going to stick with getting to a 90. Still going to do a 90. Your goal is a 90. But your real goal, like you want to be good at math, you're going to a 4-year school. Not necessarily even doing something math related, but you're going to a 4-year school, and you want to do well in your math courses. Your real goal is a 95 plus. Plain and simple. That's your real goal, because that's where you start seeing the stuff that you need to know how to do. But this one hopefully won't be too bad on you. Now, you can hit the pause button here, but you need to memorize absolute value vertex form. You need to. I don't care if you use the letter y equals. I don't care if you use function notation, f of x. You really should use f of x. But you need to learn absolute value vertex form. Now I'm going to write it down as f of x. And you'll see me doing my notes. I'll probably say y equals because they're the same thing. How's it go? I think there's an a. Absolute value bars. X minus h plus k. Now, what do those things mean as far as translations go? Well, this is called our scale factor. And I'm making sure that IXL refers to it as a scale factor. They honestly don't seem to, but it's a scale factor. A negative a is a reflection on the x-axis. Okay. Now, h is kind of nice. It literally stands for what we call a horizontal shift. Notice h and h. And again, you do opposite. We talked about this in D11. You do opposite of what it says. So if I actually wanted to shift to the right 10, I would actually say minus 10. IXL likes to call this a translation. If you'll kind of go through here, they say translation. They don't really call them what they're supposed to be. The letter K is what we call a vertical shift. Remember, it's a K. Stands for keep. Keep that sign. Okay? Those are translations, and we need to be using that vocabulary, even though IXL doesn't quite use them. Now, IXL is kind of nice. Every single one of them, they tell you this is your form. Memorize it. So it says translation 10 units down of the mother function, because it's a mother function. Call it mother function. It makes it a whole lot more fun. Of the mother function, f of x equals the absolute value of x. So 10 units down. What kind of shift is that? Is that horizontal? Horizontal, side to side, right? Vertical, up and down. This is a vertical shift. Down 10. That's what it is. Well, that's the letter K. Now, they don't talk about scale factor. They don't talk about a horizontal shift. They just talk about K. So there's no reason to put anything in front of absolute value bars. All I got to do is say down 10, where the letter K goes, minus 10. Now, this is just to pick on Trey because he asked this one day. Trey, that's what goes in the box. Okay, that's what you put in the box, and you don't need the y equals. Sorry. This is what you put in the box. They've already got g of x there. It says g of x equals. You just put that piece in the box and you're good to go. No, that wasn't so bad. Next one up talks about 2 units left of the mother function. So what we're doing is we're taking that mom Looks like that. That's mom, by the way. And we're going to shift it to left. Now I'm going to shift it up. I'm going to shift it down to left. They've got the form here, and the H stands for horizontal because left is horizontal. But aren't you supposed to do opposite? You know, when I start talking about 2 units left, I think -2. Because think about a number line. You're moving to the left. You're kind of taking away. I think -2. But when I put it in here, I have to have opposite sign. That's how it works, kids. Opposite sign. There is no talk about a scale factor. There is no talk about a vertical shift. All I have to do is think about opposite sign. Believe it or not, if we made a table, this would cause, and we graphed it, this would cause the entire graph to shift to the left too. Opposite signs. We're just going to take that little piece and we're going to put it in the box. Fairly simple. I wish you could ask me for help here, but you can't, so I hope you're paying attention because I'm trying to talk about it all. Oh, here's that word reflection. Reflection. Find g of x where g of x is the reflection of that mother function f of x equals absolute value of x. And seriously, say mother function. It's at least a little entertaining, okay? Graph this mother function. Scan back on your notes. I talked about it yesterday and I talked about it earlier, not 5 minutes ago. A negative a is a reflection on the x-axis. That's what it is, okay? Now, you talk about the mom. The mom has an understood 1 right there. So it's actually, you know, if you want to think about it, 1 absolute values of x. Well, all I got to do is I just got to make that 1 negative. And 1s are understood in the world of math, so it's just negative absolute value of x. That's really all it is. It's that simple. Now, by the time you've done a couple like that, you're probably sitting in the 25 zone. So then they start throwing more transformations at once on you. This one is 6 units right and 2 units up. Okay, 6 units right would be horizontal. And again, do opposite. Opposite sign when you go into this form, okay? 2 units up, that's definitely a vertical. That's the letter K, keep sign. So it's pretty simple. I don't see any talk about a modification of scale factor, which is kind of disappointing if they don't talk about this. You might even make one up. But it's going to be y equals the absolute value. You know, when you move right on a number line, don't you think addition? But then you're supposed to do opposite when you put it in bars. X minus 6 plus the vertical shift to 2. And again, this is your answer. That's what goes in the box tray. Now, I do feel like modifying this one. It says, because we haven't actually talked about, you know, that A value other than a reflection. So find g of x where g of x is the translation 8 units right and 9 units down of f of x equals the absolute value absolute value of x. And let's add in a piece. 8 units right, 9 units down, and need wording here. Thing is, I didn't write the IXL stuff. And we'll say vertically stretch because this is how we usually talk about things. By a factor of 3. Vertically stretched by a factor of 3. What that literally means when you vertically stretch something is that you take its endpoints and you pull it up. You literally pull it up. Well, that affects slope, kids. That affects slope. Now, scale factor, vertical stretch, that's what this is, goes right there. 3 absolute values of x. I see 8 units right. Do I? And when I see 8 units right and I think about a number line, I think plus 8. But when I put it into absolute value bars, I got to do opposite, minus 8. 9 units down, that kind of lines up with k. That's a vertical shift. You get to keep the sign. So minus 9. So on my modified problem, that would be the correct answer. Now, if you do a couple of these verbal descriptions, they start giving you graphs. That's what they start doing. They start giving you graphs. And, hit the pause button. I forgot to mention on this video, you can hit the pause button. You know you can hit the pause button. So hit the pause button if you need to at any point in time. I'm going to plot that point right there first. Always start with a vertex, kids. Your vertex is at 0, 0. That gives you H, that gives you K. That's in your notes, kids. Gives you H, gives you K. The next thing I would do is I would find A. And you can kind of think again of A as the slope. And when you're working with absolute value graphs, you should always work right to left. And you just need to find a nice point that things pass through on. Can't use that, can't use that. That looks nice, okay? Now, how did I get to that point? It looks to me like I rose 5 and I ran 4. I rose 5 and I ran 4. So I have everything I need for vertex form. I really, really do. And I'm not going to put the immediate thing in the box. I'll clean it up, obviously. I have y equals, a is 5/4, goes right in front of absolute value bars. X minus h, well, h was 0, plus k, k was 0. Now, IXL, I hope it would reject this, because this should never, ever, ever, ever be written. Never. Taking away a 0 changes nothing. Adding 0 changes nothing. 5/4, the absolute value of x. And they do want fractions for those of you who are using decimals. They don't want decimals. Don't use decimals. Decimals are bad. All right. Let's do something. Well, let's do one of these because, baby steps, right? Baby steps. Got to do baby steps. Here's my most important part, my vertex. The coordinates my vertex, I didn't go anywhere on the x-axis, 0, and I went up 4. And again, that's your h, that's your k. After you find your vertex, worry about your slope. It looks to me, if you plot that point right there, that you rose 3 and ran 3, didn't you? You rose 3, ran 3? Well, that's 1, kids. Don't ever do something like type in 3 over 3. A number divided by itself must be 1. There's only one exception to this rule in the whole universe, okay? A smiley face divided by a smiley face is 1. The one exception is 0 over 0. 0 over 0 can't be done. God himself, if he was limited to the rules of our mathematics, couldn't divide 0 by 0. Okay? A is 1. I talk about my form. Do I need to write ones down? Aren't they understood? So I don't need to mention that one. Absolute value of x. Wouldn't it go minus 0? Minus 0? That's understood. I take away 0 from my weight, I'm still fat. Plus k, keep sign, plus 4. And that is what goes in the box for g of x. Now, the next one's got like all 3 pieces. Well, no, it's missing a vertical shift. It is. The coordinates of my vertex looks like it is at 9, 0. So it doesn't have a vertical shift. It didn't get moved, It got moved to the right, it didn't get moved up or down. And we're going to have to make up another problem because none of these are just good enough for you, to be honest with you. But it's got some of the pieces. We've got an H. We don't have a K. We need to identify slope. Is your slope going to be positive or negative? This thing went down, didn't it? It's dropping. It's falling down. So your slope is negative. It will be negative. And I'm just going to pick, well, pretty simple. It just fell one and ran one. -1. So my equation is pretty simple. Y equals negative absolute value bars of x. Ooh, there's a horizontal shift. Do you change the sign or do you keep the sign on the horizontal? Change it, kids. It doesn't line up with K. K stands for keep. Change. -9. And that little piece right there is what you put in the box. Now I'm going to make one up just because I didn't pick out some of the ones I should have. So I'm going to freehand graph one, and we're going to come up with the equation. Don't worry, I'll tell you what you need to know. It's kind of hard to freehand graph because it's hard to keep your tick marks equidistant. You know, kids are like, well, why don't you use graph paper, Mr. Milbrath? I don't use graph paper because the ACT doesn't give you graph paper. So you just kind of got to go with it. And the truth is, I know this doesn't make much sense, but the more work that a kid has to do to interpret, the smarter they get. You know, my handwriting has never been a problem because you're forced to interpret. Your brain is more active. And if I notice it's bad, I'll fix it. It's that bad. I don't judge your handwriting, don't judge mine. All right, let's put a vertex about right here. Now this is at -4, -3. And I'm just going to make up a slope. I mean, I really don't care what the slope is. Let's say that I'm going to run to the right 3 and fall 2. All right. Here's what my V looks like. Now, what I did is I fell 2 and I ran right 3. So A, which we think of as slope, is -2/3. Fell 2, ran 3. And it is negative, kids. This thing opened down. We talked about that. That's a reflection. It opens down. That's all we need to write an equation. We have an H, we have a K, and we have an A value. That's all we need. We'll just call this function d of x as in done. This is the last one. D of x would be, what comes first is, your slope, your A value, -2/3, absolute value bar, x. Now your form is -h. Well, if you take away a -4, don't you get a +4? Change sign, plus k, plus a -3. And I've talked about this with a couple of kids. Don't do plus a minus. Don't do plus a negative. Adding a negative is subtraction all day long. Just keep the sign. And there's your equation. And that's going to be everything you need to be able to do IXLD14. And again, get that thing in the high 90s. I've got an easy goal of 90. It's not that hard, but get into the high 90s. And good luck.